And that's when the Filipino guerrillas came in from the jungle. There was an amphibious landing, and also the 11th Airborne
Oh, dropped
came
in.
down and rescued them.
Wow.
And he sat on that back step with her. He was telling her they were all by themselves at the house. And she said one tear came down his face. And then they heard a car coming down. And he just like got up and he never talked about it again. But they wanted him to come here and recover. I thought that was very significant. Aunt Elizabeth was saying, why don't you come here with your, he had a manservant that Santiago was very devoted to him and risked his life for getting food to him. It was terrible retribution if he had been caught. And but he was so devoted to the Philippines. That's why
To the people.
pardon me.
To the people.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And I read a letter of Aunt Elizabeth that she went out after he died, like to attend to his funeral and so on. And she said there were all these natives like throwing themselves onto the, and that she was horrified, like, what is this? My brother, what these native people. And I thought, well, you know,
He was in Los
Baños camp.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That was a notorious camp. But he had many warnings to leave early. Get out, get out. But he thought, Dad told me that he thought because he was elderly that they wouldn't, that maybe he could act as an intermediary because he had been to Japan. These were very, very well-traveled people. And he thought he could explain about, oh, these are the customs here. But instead they took him. And his best friend, his business partner, they said, no, not you, because you're so old. If you die in the camp, it would like be shameful for us. And his best friend said, no, if you take my friend, you have to take me also. And they said, well, okay, but if you come in, you can't go out. He said, I understand that. And he spent the whole war with him. And Mother said that.
And that was Santiago who stayed with him? No, this is somebody else.
That was somebody else, like a business partner. He was an American from Hawaii. And Mother said that the friend, I think his name was Mr. Babbitt, did much better because he was a much more sort of cheerful, like, oh, well, we can't do anything about this, so, let's just carry on. Whereas Grandfather was like, no, oh, it's so horrible, you know. But my mother told me also that he was helpful to others because the men in his group, they said, we just want to die. Let us die. Let's all die. And he said, no, look, I'm going to, every day I'll pick the maggots out of the rice and you sweep and you something else. So just leave us alone. But he insisted, and Mother said that at least somebody there said that saved us because we kept going until the miracle happened and they were rescued.
Lives,
yeah. But he changed. Mother said he had been so charming, and he exchanged plants. That was another plant connection where he had. There's a book, The Garden Islands of the East by somebody Fairchild, and that was the Fairchilds were very good friends with Grandfather Lord and Aunt Elizabeth. And Fairchild was connected to the Smithsonian and collected plants and things like that. And Grandfather and Mr. Fairchild and all these other people, they would say, I'm sending you a plant, by the mail or on a ship. I think you'll love this plant. So they're doing all these things that we're not supposed to do now. Yeah.
And they were coming here, those plants.
I don't know. I hadn't heard anything like that. But I mean, out there in the Philippines, I mean, he had a beautiful estate. It was called Marikina, where my dad lived for years. And it had like fruit trees, and they were almost self-sufficient there. And during the war, when he was in the camp, it was used as an officer headquarters by the Japanese. And when he got out, he got himself to the house, and it was completely bare. All the artwork, the furniture, the silver, everything that he had collected, he all traveling, all this, that, the other. It was all gone and shipped in big boxes to Japan. And in the 60s, Dad in Washington, for some reason, had to go to the Spanish ambassador's residence in D.C., and they said, please sit in the living room, and he will be out in a minute to speak with you. And Dad sat down, and right in front of him was a painting that by a Filipino painter named Amor Solo, that had been a wedding gift to him and Mother.
Wow.
That had been hanging in his father's house.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, Dad, what did you do? This is why I loved him so much. He said, of course I did nothing, dear. And I said, really? You didn't say anything? He said, no. Obviously, this gentleman had bought this in good faith, and he would know nothing about this.
And then he would, and then he would feel bad.
And then he would feel bad. What could he do about that? Yeah.
But he got to enjoy the painting one more time.
Yeah. I mean, he seemed to derive isn't that just something, kind of thing.
Wow.
That's a good attitude.
He was not materialistic.
Yeah, that's good.
But he read a lot of like Jack London, like Fang the dog, and
adventure stories.
Yeah, things like that about isn't this grand or amazing?
All right, should we go in?
Was like every child's friend. She was like, she had like a little cap with bells and the fairy stories, and she would always get sparklers. She'd say, "Look, I got more sparklers." And we'd be out here, and Aunt Elizabeth would come out and say, "There you are doing these things again, Nina." So, well, it's a lot of fun. Why don't you join us? Certainly not. No. Yeah. I always wondered about this. Or is this?
I think that there was a stovepipe and a flue here because there was a kitchen.
Well, there was a
wood stove here.
A wood stove.
That's what I
That
think.
would be much later, though, I think.
Yes.
But this looks old.
Because when you look at the old pictures, there's only one chimney. And then
Yes.
later there's two.
Oh,
Anyway, that's what we
I
figured.
see. That makes sense. That makes sense. One day, when I was a teenager, my mother was cooking here. I was sitting on a little stool here, chatting with her, and then suddenly I went and I opened this drawer, and there were these dishcloths there, and Mommy said, "What are you doing, Carmencita?" I said, "I don't know, Mommy. I just never looked in here." And there was an old book with no covers there, and it was a cookbook to commemorate Grant's inauguration. And I have that, and I can bring it to show it to you, because Wyatt was here, but the covers are gone. But it has,
It's well loved.
take, 3 pounds of butter, 10 pounds of sugar.
That's
The good old recipes.
Yeah, the good old recipes. But this one has been like this.
Was it always yellow?
No, there's another color if you look here.
Yeah, it was reddish at one
This
point.
is very 1940s, this.
okay.
This pink is the original, I mean, not going back, excuse me, to the beginning, but always. And this my parents wrote here.
Yes, we've enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Carmen, would you like a water?
Oh, I'm fine,
Yeah,
thank
okay,
you.
okay.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. And this was always here. And they always use that. And then here, there's that other piece of furniture that has the lid that opens.
It's over here,
That
yes.
was always here, and
Okay.
that was used. This was mostly like for tools, things like that. And in here they kept their ancient vacuum and the
ironing board.
Yeah, the ironing board.
It's still in there, actually.
Yeah, and then here they kept the valuable things, and I think Mother and Dad
the extra
pointed
log.
us that had, you know, like a platter
Oh,
for.
oh,
You wouldn't believe like the food that came out of here was just simply unbelievable. Everybody was such a good cook. You couldn't help. They say no, no, you know, we know how to do this.
The little thing that was here, what was used on, was that tools? 'Cause that's a very unusual thing.
Yes, I don't know. Mother was a painter, so she kept her painting supplies in it. But that was, and this is a water softener, and this was done in Mother and Dad's day, because
This is where they came in.
yes, Mother was like 5'4" because for my son, because the wood. I found a letter saying that my grandfather chose the wood for the top,
Oh, wow.
and I thought that was
Be a good thing for him.
important. Yeah, to.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So here's this little
I'm
table.
so
That's
sorry.
what this
yes,
is.
this, yeah,
Is that going to stay here?
yes.
Okay,
yes,
all right. So that's where it
stay
goes, is
here.
in there. Okay, good.
Yes,
That's good
that's
to know.
where that goes. And the Mexican painting I also kept, but that was something that was here when my mother came here as a bride in 1942, because it's in those photographs. This is new, you know, newish. You referred to this.
Well,
as
only
a-
because I think that there were, yeah, just,
watch
you
your
have a
step.
system here.
we do. Well,
Yeah.
it's
Very
temporary,
advanced.
but.
This was actually Aunt Elizabeth's bedroom.
Ah, okay.
And she had like it didn't look like a queen, it looked like a full bed here with a wrought iron bedstead. And the other bedroom was used by Tia Nina. And she was the one that chose that blue-green. That was one of their signature colors. And she was the one that determined that color.
And how did she have the bedroom in here? What did she
The
have?
bed was like this.
In the middle.
Yes, like here.
Uh-huh.
And austere, really. I think she had a chest of drawers, and that closet there, and really nothing much.
This
maybe
mirror,
a
this
chair.
mirror says Elizabeth Lord on the back.
Yes. Oh, it does?
It
Oh,
does,
must
yes.
maybe have come from-
Watch
Yes.
yourself.
May
please.
have come from the Philippines. All the, thank you, all the design suite, says EL underneath. Is it EL? Or
No, it says
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth Lord, right?
Oh.
I
Well, don't worry about it either.
Anyway,
No, they're very heavy.
So what
Yeah.
color was this one?
I don't know.
Okay.
Gosh, I'm sorry that
No,
I
I'm just curious.
when my parents inherited the house, it was belonged. Edith had use in perpetuity of this house and their house where they ran their office in Salem until her death. Then it went to my parents,
Okay.
and my dad liked the color yellow. He said it's the most cheerful color.
Yeah, so unknown.
But I thought maybe there was a place where you could see some of their painting color.
Well, it's probably underneath all this.
Yes.
If we ever
But they
wanted
were
to figure it
sort
out.
of,
The floor changed colors at some point.
yes, look at this, yeah,
Is that a green?
green, yes.
Yeah, that's a green under there.
That's a blue
And
green.
they also had a big rag or a, braided rug in the living room. I tried to keep that going, but it was so full of decades of dust, I could never get it clean. But when Mother and Dad inherited the house, then they turned this into Dad's office, and that's when that became a desk, and he, used this closet. I think the bureau was here. Oh, this is so pretty. Here's the.
Well, we talked about it and decided this might be a better place. If you're planning to spend the night here tonight, you can sleep here.
Oh, thank
and,
you so much. So kind of you. Did you move this really?
Well, this was in there. Oh, these guys.
We figured out how to take it apart.
Oh, I've never tried to take this apart. It's so heavy. That bedroom was actually where my parents would stay when they slept, or when grandfather would come to visit, he would sleep there. And they had a room like that also in their formal house. And for with 2 twin beds, I have those beds. But when he would come to visit, they would change the railings because he was very tall, so they would make the railings longer for him.
Really?
Wow. They had the extra long.
Yeah, they were. It's a bed from the Philippines, and they you know, they just had
So
that.
this was Edith's sort of then.
Yes, yes. She was a person that just, you know. They both were very good. Like, I never heard them like saying, "Oh, I'm a feminist" or something like that. But if somebody wasn't paying attention or not treating, you know, like taking seriously, they just do the death stare. You know, like more like, "I'm so very, very surprised," you know, to see this.
That might be worse than
This.
what?
Oh yes.
So on some of the literature, there was mention that they were lesbians, but that's.
I didn't know if to mention that. I never saw a single trace, and I saw that on the Conservancy website. They're saying
we read it and we did swim.
they said personal and professional partners, and I told them I cannot. I mean, you know, if it was so, it was so. But I never, by a look, by a glance, by anything at all.
No romantic sense of that. In fact, you said that each of them had made decisions early in their lives that they were probably not going to marry for whatever reason.
And my father also affirmed that, that they had hoped to marry. And, you know, there was somebody that Edith cared about very much, but he was married, you know, back in New York, and that was one reason that she just said, "Okay, this, you know, gotta move on." And they worked together very, very well, but they would also, you know, "Well, I don't agree with that," you know. I mean, it wasn't, you know, just.
And there was an age difference where.
A big age difference.
Yeah, there was. At least 10 years or 15, different generations.
And also Elizabeth came from, you know, an old family, one generation old family in Salem, and Edith, you know, she was a self-made person, and but they were both incredibly kind people, incredibly kind people, incredibly good people. They would do anything. For anybody.
And that's that signature blue too you were talking about.
It's faded a little bit. It was a little bit deeper. And I thought, pardon me, I thought on the back of this part, like here, I thought it was a little deeper. May I?
Oh yeah, sure. Do whatever.
I thought I remembered. Oh yes, see? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But even this seems sort of faded. They used a special green, it's a different green for their lath work in their formal gardens. It's a special green.
Different than this one.
Yes.
So that's a lot more bluish.
Yes, this was Edith's color. This was Edith's. I learned to love this color from Edith. She had certain things that were very characteristic of her. And I didn't realize until maybe 20 years ago what a huge influence they have been, because my mother had never been able to finish high school because of the Spanish Civil War. And my sister got married young, but I decided to study and it took me a long time. I had to learn how to say, how do you study and all of this. And ended up teaching at university. But I learned later that my father had said to Edith and Elizabeth, "Well, I don't know what's the use of her going to college if she's just going to get married and then it'll all be wasted. And they said, no, it's not wasted. It's very important, and you never know what will happen in life, and so on and so forth. So they were the ones who saved my education for me, although I did a lot with scholarships also, which were a lot easier to get them. But there was always the bed here, because from here you could see the fireplace lit at night with all the lights off. And also you could see out
Yes, because that's
to
what
the
we.
view.
Yeah.
The Salem house, it's reversed, where Aunt Elizabeth has a bit bigger room and a bit better view that looks out over the bush garden and the back garden, whereas Edith's room is a little smaller, so they
That's interesting. So this was always paneled like this,
always.
and
yes.
then the bed was here. What kind of a bed was it?
I don't remember a particular.
Or dressers or anything in here, or
The dresser, excuse me, the dresser was always here, and the mirror was always here.
oh yeah, you can see where the face
Yeah.
there.
Oh yeah, there's the mirror.
Yeah, the mirror was here. And
Something was there.
yes, there was a little, I think it was here, or maybe it was the outside bedroom. There was a little table on a hinge.
Yes.
With a little
Probably there.
here, and my parents would
Yeah.
sit here and have the evening cocktail and play cribbage. And then they would say, oh, now it's time for dinner. And they would go and have their dinner.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think Mother and Dad had these bookcases installed. And here was, the heavier sofa was here. And then the end table with the phone and a lamp, the landline. And then here was the first chair facing like this, and then the desk, the bamboo desk. And then Aunt Elizabeth always sat on this side in the evening looking this way, talking, chatting, and then during the day she would turn the chair and they were
You could see the ocean.
Yes. Yes, this was, you could see all the way, you didn't have all this brush here.
Right.
Nothing like this.
Yeah.
And could you see when you look that way, like there's trees probably in the park there, I think, is what we would see if we cleared everything, not cleared, but open to that.
Yes.
We were looking and looking down there. See, if you step right over here, see how you can see a little bit of light?
Yes. It
We
might
think
be
that's the
park,
beach.
Maybe, and also the property down here, they've let their trees
Yes.
grow, but it's possible sometimes to speak to people. And also the folks down there, see, you have an incredible view. I thought if this could be open and your property goes,
Yes.
you could, kind of nick the top off of that over there,
Yes.
but they might have trees that are in the way. But maybe, but maybe that can be talked about. Excuse me, I'm going to get a tissue paper.
There's one right there behind the lamp.
Oh, thank you very much. Sorry. Because they had me read it. First I take it, and they said, you just read it. And then, his hand came up and she screamed and, all of this. And they just stayed up all night, like listening to that story with the fireplace going. And then here is the little bamboo bookcase. And this had the most important books here that were books about the sea, about the history of sea, how do you say, like trade or exploration, Magellan and things like that.
Oh, right.
And books about trees and books about Oregon. Because you said about sitting, that was for the evening when they would come back from things. They were like up early and talking and coffee and this and that, and then go do things. They were very busy here, like working all the time, and and talking about what do you think and how about this, and let's have a workman come. or they would go on day trips. They would go to Cape Perpetua. They would go up to Spanish something hotel and
I
have
know
a
which one you're talking
meal.
about. There's one up north,
Yes.
the end of the Spanish Head.
That's it.
Mhm.
That's it. The Inn of Spanish Head, and they would eat in the restaurant that looks out at the sea, and or there was an oyster farm. They would go there and choose, all these things, or just go on a drive, and go see something. So they always had all of these destinations. They knew all about Oregon. They would do trips to Crater Lake also. So they were very involved in seeing everything and looking at everything and reading all the labels and things like that. They were very knowledgeable, but those kinds of books would be here. And then here, and then this was not here.
So this fireplace functions without this.
Oh, yes.
And then all the way up at the top, has that been changed? Are you aware of what
Nothing has
was
been
changed up
changed.
there? Because
No.
there's like there's a piece of paving. There's a paving stone.
And I'd like to bring it back here if you would like it. It's a red table.
We would very much like that.
Yes, and there was another table. They had like all these. There was no table in the middle. You would come here, they'd stand like this,
Get
over
warmed
the
up.
fire,
The
and
And then
but
you had your sitting over there with the round table.
yes, the round table, and then the lower fireplace. Sofa, and then it's all there in the storage, like 3 nesting tables, and you could pull out the smaller one, and sometimes they would take these and put them down there and serve lunch, there.
But they're very portable, which was
Very
nice.
portable.
Yes.
Yes, and then, and all the cushions on the furniture were filled with kapok, which is the fiber of a tree in the Philippines. It's like a cotton. And that's what the cushions for this sofa are. We have those. And Mother and Dad
Really?
covered, Mother could do like simple sewing and just put simple new covers and 1970s patterns, in there. But it is the most comfortable furniture. The only thing I don't know where it is the original cushion for the little sofa. I just never spotted it, but it had like a flat, kind of like a mattress, and then the cushions. I don't know. Maybe I have them. I'm not sure. But this has the whole thing. The whole thing. Yeah. And if the house was very full. Like my parents were here, I was here, Elizabeth was here, Tianina was here. She would sleep here.
Who would?
Tianina.
Oh,
or
in this
Edith.
room.
No, she'd give that room
Yeah,
up
give
to
up the
my-
bedroom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to
the
my
guests.
mom and dad.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and she would sleep very comfortably here. And that bookcase there, Mother and Dad bought that from, and has the label.
Yes. And where was that?
That was in that spot, but
Right
that
where it
was
is.
after they inherited the house.
Yes.
And there was a ship here. I have that. It's a ship that Dad brought from Catalonia, of a typical sailing ship from there. And there was another smaller one on top of that bookcase, but that was stolen.
Oh no.
Yes, it's a miracle that this house has been broken into very, very few times. Once, Aunt Elizabeth, I saw letters that she said, it's horrible, somebody came and stole blankets, and like blankets,
Yeah,
so
that's
evil,
right.
and another time, we were amazed because somebody came and they didn't take anything, but they somehow found that air BB gun or something there.
Oh, weird.
He always had something like that, like.
That sounds
So
like
here,
kids.
was there a bookcase here?
No, this was a sideboard, and that I do really want to keep because Mr. Babbitt gave that to my parents as a wedding gift. And it's an old Filipino sideboard. But there are two chairs that I'd also like to give you that they really belong here, and they're very good chairs, but they're a very old-fashioned kind of chair. It's like like just a very plain chair, but handmade, and it had rawhide, going like this, but somehow the critters ate that, and then there was a little cushion on it. But they were so good, like to take out and put around. They always had like these extra makeshift tables that, you can have, 10 people come or everybody come and, eat crab or something like that. Or it's amazing, they gave parties here. You saw the photograph of them, and they would just put tables like on sawhorses, and the tabletop is out there in the garage, or used to be.
Is it green? There's one on the floor out there.
It really belongs here, and it has a little, you see the shape of the little bookcase up above, and there's a tiny table, and there was no other furniture here.
I love these doors.
Yeah, these doors
Yes.
are wonderful.
These are, we have to open them carefully,
Yeah.
and they eventually to be researched. This will all take time, but it's going to be,
Yeah.
well, like the time it took to create it, I guess. And there were
Few different colors.
chairs of wood that were also from the 30s here. And there were a couple of these chairs. These came with the Filipino furniture. These are Filipino, and they're incredibly comfortable. And this was all open, but
Yeah.
none of this was here. I might put that, because he thought it was a good idea. But this pattern, this is the
Yes, I
second
like that a lot.
generation. That was Edith's design.
Yeah.
And I mean, you need to do what you think is best, but, and if you want to paint the inside, I mean, it's your house and you do what
But
you
well, we
think is
love those
best.
It looks like Art Deco style. Reminds me.
Yeah,
Yeah, one day I sat here and just studied the pattern.
yes. I
How
think
wet would this get?
wet,
Wet? Without the glass?
I don't remember it getting especially wet, really. But it is an idea to enclose it. And for a while, we were thinking about even extending the porch, out that way, so you'd have and enclose the whole thing, so you'd have, kind of a real estate going out there that you can sit there in the winter and look out at the view and all that. But the wind would be pretty
Yes,
terrific.
yes, the wind is an issue.
And these trees here, they weren't here, none of this, that
Yes.
was all blocking.
No, these trees were here. This,
Not the
I'm sorry.
not the rhododendrons, but these big hemlock things.
this tree has always been here that I can remember, and it's always troubled me a little bit because it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it needs to be pruned or something.
Yeah, it's pretty,
Yeah.
It needs help.
It needs help.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just cut it down. You could,
Well,
I've
having the
always,
view back.
yeah,
One thing I try to think about is rewinding the clock in my mind,
Yes.
and it helps to see the original photographs
Yes.
because it looks so different.
yes, but that's the very, very beginning. I never saw it like that.
Right.
My parents, my father, maybe not my mother, but my father saw it like that because there's a picture of him and his father, grandfather, were standing here, and everything is
Yes.
low,
Yes.
and it's just amazing to see that, you know.
Yes.
And then this bedroom was, and there was no door here or anything like that. And then this, and when they would leave, like to go
Oh,
back
you
to
can shutter the
Salem,
doors.
they would shut this, and then shut this,
Shutter.
the shutters, and then they put the Adirondack chairs like on their knees, like leaning like this against this, and that was their security.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we can-
But there were, you know, it wouldn't be a bad idea like to have shutters here, like for storm, like they do in your. May I go in?
Of course. Yeah.
And this was the outside bedroom, which we thought was just the coolest bedroom. And one of the metal beds was here.
Yeah.
The
And the
brass, the
other-
brass ones?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
and the other one here. And there was this little closet. Mother and Dad put the new doors on there. It might have just been open before. I can't quite recall. And then there was a chest of drawers here. A chest of drawers over there. And another one of, there was a mirror here. A mirror here. And these are very old, these windows.
I know, they're very, very old.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And was there one of these here, or what was, did that's obviously new.
Yes, Mother and Dad did that, and I'm sorry, I just don't.
Hard to remember, huh?
I think it was just all like this,
I
without a
would think so.
louver.
Yeah.
But something I have thought about is that in case of a fire, and if, the house is so small, God forbid, but there'd be a chance of getting to one of these major exits. But I always thought, being in that back bedroom there, that you can't really open something, and that would be hard glass too, because Aunt Elizabeth got special glass, so it's quite thick.
Yeah.
She was very proud of those big windows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was hard to do in those days.
It was.
Yeah. Something I thought of too, just put it out there, I wondered, where the garage is, if, I don't know a lot about this, but I know that you have to get permits or something like to build or add on or things like that. But that garage, if you wanted to make a master suite there, that had an attached bathroom, and then, I don't know, do what with Tianina's bedroom, but you could extend the house this way, and using the garage. And I also thought that at the top of the drive, you could have like a guest cottage or an office even. Or I thought, what about making this, replacing this with like a two-story separate, mini residence with a little kitchenette or whatever, and you'd have the second floor to see the view. This is from the 1930s, I think, this structure, but it doesn't mean it's,
Right.
you have to do what you have to do.
Interesting thoughts.
The garden, the old plants, I think, if at all possible, to preserve those, that would,
We
You
want
know.
to do that.
Yeah.
standing here with the whole wearing blue jeans, and I was like, what? Wait, that's not gonna
But anyway, you were going to say something, and I interrupted
Yes,
you.
no, but exactly like you were saying, that I never saw them. Maybe I saw them in bathrooms, maybe briefly, but they always wore their, leather shoes, the stockings, and the dress, and in winter, a heavier dress with a sweater, or something like that. I just never saw them other than this way, and with their hat and gloves and all of this. But I remember being three, and sitting out here at one of those little nesting tables, and Aunt Elizabeth gave me a sandwich and a glass of milk, and then she sat in the chair and was watching me eat. And my mother had already said, eat very carefully, be very careful. And I remembered about the napkin and all that, and I guess I passed the test. But I was going to say that magic, that's what I would go for, because at night with that fireplace going, and the room has the lamps, the table lamps and so on, it is magic. It is magic there, I think. Yeah.
So where did you sleep?
I sometimes slept in one of these beds and a lot over in Tianina's room. I can't ever remember sleeping in Aunt Elizabeth's room. Later, when my parents inherited the house, they put a twin bed there and made that into Dad's office. But then when the grandsons would come and visit, they would sleep there or, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.